Amir, give us the go ahead.
It is just 1 minute.
Okay.
Right, should we get the good in?
Okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Wa sallallahu ala an-nabiy al-kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We want to welcome all of you again to another episode, another edition, another event we have from the Islamic Dawah movement concerning the Palestinian issue. We have had a few already, and alhamdulillah, the responses have been good. Tonight, we have one with a little twist. We have somebody who is actually from Gaza, originally from Gaza, and he understands what life in Gaza is about, unlike any one of us would even appreciate or understand. So we have somebody who's going to be on tonight. We'll do an interview with our brother, Dr. Nasser. We'll introduce him in a little bit, inshallah. And we want to focus on Gaza itself. We want to focus on the elements, the things that are happening in the war at this point in time. For example, 700 people died in the last 24 hours. 700 in the last 24 hours. We are hearing of the ground invasion now moving south. They have not found the tunnels under Shiva Hospital, and therefore they're moving south now because they're saying that's where we need to go. So we really want to welcome and appreciate our brother and really graciously thank him for agreeing to be on tonight. He's in Houston at this point in time. Houston is 2 hours behind us. So we want to appreciate and thank our brother, Dr. Mosab Nasser. Assalamu alaikum ya akhi.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for inviting me, Habib.
Afwan ya akhi. We really appreciate you taking the time out. We know this is a busy time for you as well, having been to a Palestine conference last week. I'm sure you're speaking at several events. So for the sake of the audience, Dr. Nasser, can I ask you to please introduce yourself for the sake of our audience?
Yes, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's really a pleasure to be with my brothers and sisters from Trinidad. In fact, I was in Trinidad on a business trip not long ago, I think a few months ago. So it's always a pleasure to be amongst you. So my name is Mosab Nasser. I was born and raised in Gaza in 1975. I spent 22 years of my life in Gaza, living in the north of Gaza, Beit Hanun. And then I did my undergrad in physics in Gaza, and then I went to Europe. I went to Italy, did my master's degree in physics, and did my PhD in Norway in physics. And then I worked for Shell in oil and gas, and I've been in the oil and gas business for the past 20 plus years. And this is why I'm in Houston, and that's why I visited Trinidad not long ago. So this is on the professional side. On the humanitarian side, I'm the CEO of an organization called Feder Scientific. It's a purely medical organization that actually conducts medical missions with large medical teams. And the last time we were in Gaza as a medical team was in August, where we did 153 complex orthopedic surgeries in 5 days. We trained people on the ground. We had about 70 medical personnel working with us, and we had about 90 medical students from the universities working with us and doing research. And we brought in about $4 million worth of medical supplies that are now very handy for Gaza. But I believe most likely they have been depleted because of the need. I'm married and I have 5 children, born in different countries. But I've been outside Palestine for the past 27 years now. But I visit there regularly because my entire family is in Gaza right now. We are from the north of Gaza. As I say, the town called Beit Hanun. I have about 200 plus immediate kind of family members between brothers, sisters, their children, and husbands, wives, and subhanallah, all of them have been displaced in the past 6 weeks. And they had to flee to the south because of the indiscriminate Israeli bombing. So our homes have been destroyed. In fact, my entire family has been made homeless, I would say, in the past 5 years. So even if they go back to Beit Hanun now, they have no place to stay. So, and I can tell you, none of them is really involved in Hamas in any way, in a form or shape. In fact, my brothers work for the United Nations in Gaza, and that tells you the bombing is not targeting, Hamas or specific people. This is indiscriminate bombing that's really targeting civilians, and it's aiming at killing the spirit of the Palestinian people. That's kind of a short intro.
Brother Nasser, so it means your family were in Beit Hanun and they moved south. Have you lost any members of your family in this latest episode?
We lost 2 children. One is 5. Those are the children of my niece. One is 5 and one is 7. One is 5 years old and the other one is 7 years old. And on my wife's side, we've lost a child who is 1.5 years old.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them Jannah.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair.
So, Doc, we really want to have an appreciation, our audience wants to have an appreciation of life in Gaza. You spent your early years there. A blockade took place after 2006, after the election when Hamas won. Correct. Can you please describe to us life in Gaza under blockade?
Yes, absolutely. So it's better if we go back one step, if you don't mind, one step further. I can tell you from the days that I was in Gaza, and there was no blockade. We were, and there was no Hamas, and there was no even Palestinian Authority. We were under basically the Israeli occupation. So this is when I was in high school and before. The early years of the Intifada, I was still a kid in Gaza. And I was one of the children that you see on TV throwing rocks at the Israeli soldiers back in the day. I've lost many of my friends who used to throw rocks at the Israeli soldiers, and there's no match, a rock versus a machine gun. But
sorry, during this time there was no wall, was there?
I'm sorry?
There was no fence at that time.
No, there was a fence.
Okay.
Actually, Gaza has always been fenced.
Okay.
Except the movement maybe was less restrictive and blockade. So there's one story I always like to share from that time. When I used to study at night, I used to stay late sometimes until midnight or 1 a.m. And because we were under the Israeli occupation, so we had Israeli jeeps roaming the streets at night. I used when I hear them from a distance, I used to run to switch off the lights because if they find the light on after midnight, most likely they will go into the house and beat everyone and arrest the people inside the house. So we used to have curfew from 7 p.m. onwards. So if you are outside after 7 p.m., you could be shot or you could be arrested. In 1992, I finished my high school, or actually about to finish my high school. And I wanted to leave Gaza. I really wanted to go and study abroad. And I was looking at potentially Australia or Canada. So one of the things you need to do when you travel, you need to make a passport, correct? So because we don't have a country, we're under occupation, we have to get kind of an Israeli passport. supposedly an Israeli travel document. And it was my first one, so I was very excited to go and make one. And I applied for one. When it was ready, I went to pick it up. So I'm going to share with you that document. Actually, I still keep it until today. It's from 1992. Okay. And this is going to be a quiz to our audience to tell me if they noticed something in this document. So it's this one here. So do you see this document? Okay, so this is my travel document. I'm going to zoom into it a little bit. This is my travel document that I got from the Israeli authorities at the time. Is there anything or something suspicious about this document? So let me ask you, Brother Mirza, do you see anything suspicious about this document?
Well, I'm seeing Hebrew on the passport. The undefined.
Undefined. What is that undefined? So nationality undefined. This is the passport. This is my passport. I mean, this is me in 1992, and it was valid for 1 year, 1993. Normally, like my US passport is valid for 10 years. So here the passport, or this travel document actually is not a passport, it's travel document valid for 1 year, which basically they mean you cannot leave the country for more than 1 year. If you do, then you go into exile. You have to come back. So you'll be questioned and all that. So this is, imagine someone hands you a travel document and you're very excited to make your first passport, and in it, it says undefined. This is before Hamas ever kind of existed in a form it is today. This is before the Palestinians would ever have any kind of, power to threaten Israel. This is basically a civilian population. Okay. And over the years, this is what happened, as you've seen this map, of course, before, and you're familiar with how Palestine got disintegrated over time into what you see today, from green into totally white, which is supposedly Israel today. And one last slide I'd like to show is actually this one here, and then we can go into the further discussion. This slide summarizes it all, actually. To the right is so this is Gaza Strip, and this is the fence between Gaza and Israel, and you can see the contrast. Okay, here you're looking at a place in Europe or the US or maybe Trinidad, and here you're looking at a place looks miserable, very random, disorganized, lack of infrastructure. And to me, this picture speaks volume about the occupation. And this is the city of Khan Yunis that is actually the next target for the Israeli army in Gaza as we speak. Any questions on these ones, or we can move forward, brother?
Yeah, we can move on. I want to ask you, based on what you're just saying, Dr. Nasser, that if this happened then,
correct,
and it continued, it means things have not really changed, number one. Number two, we're hearing that there's one law for Palestinians, or one set of laws, and one set of laws for Israelis. And we are hearing that this is the only country in the entire world where children can be tried in military court.
Correct. So there are three, I would say 4 types of Palestinians, and there is one type of Israeli in that land. So the Israelis control the white area I showed you earlier, and they have the full rights, like citizens of the United States, for example, in the US. They have every right to move, the right to own a house, the right to travel, the right of movement without any restrictions. And you have Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank who were kicked out of their homes in 1948 and in 1967, and they're made refugees in their own homes, which is Gaza and the West Bank. Gaza has 7 refugee camps and a few towns, but it's all fenced. Gaza is about 360 square kilometers. That is roughly the widest area of Gaza Strip is about 5-6 kilometers, and the length is about, I think, 36 or 40 kilometers, plus minus. The total area is about 360 square kilometers. And it's the most densely populated area on the planet. We have 2.2 million people living in Gaza. So those are the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. They do not have the same rights as the Israelis. They are not allowed to travel freely. There's tons of restrictions on both sides of different types. So the Palestinians in Gaza, we don't have an airport, or we don't have a port. The only exit for us is through Egypt, and that is very difficult. You need to justify your travel and all that stuff. I remember I lived my entire life until I was 22 years old within 1 square kilometer in Gaza, which is the north of Gaza, which is Beit Hanun. And the first time I left was 1997, when I got a scholarship to go and do my master's degree in Italy. And I can tell you, that was my first time. Of course, I went through Egypt. That was my first time in my life to see a train, was first time in my life to see a plane, was the first time in my life to see highways. So I was literally like a kid in a toy store. I remember when I flew in the plane from Cairo to Rome, I was literally looking out of the window the 4 hours out of kind of excitement and anxiety. It's like I was born at 22 years old. And that's part of the violation of our childhood as Palestinian children. And that is really nothing compared to what we see today on TV. Like, it has, escalated exponentially over the years, to the point where we see right now people are killed in hundreds. Today alone, more than 200 Palestinians, I believe, have been martyred in Gaza. And I'm not sure the number went up or not since last time I watched the news. Yeah. On the West Bank, just to kind of follow on that point, on the West Bank, they broke it down into small areas, and I think it's worth sharing the screen again. If you look at this slide here, the West Bank went from this solid green into this, which means if you live in this green area, you want to go to this green area, it might take you a full day. If you want to go from this green area to this green area, you might have to stay on checkpoints, Israeli checkpoints, that's dividing this area into so many regions. It might take you a full day or even 2 days, and you might actually never make it. A lot of women actually gave birth on the Israeli checkpoints that surround these green areas, okay? For Gaza, it's this only entry point to Egypt, which is also impossible. So these are two types of Palestinians, Gaza and the West Bank. Those basically have no rights. Then you have what we call Israeli Arabs, or Palestinians that remained in their villages and cities and towns in 1948, and they didn't leave. Those are what we call, second-hand citizenships, okay? Second-class citizens of Israel. Yes, they carry the Israeli passport, but they don't have the same rights. Their villages and towns are totally ignored by the local authorities, so they don't have the same services. They don't have, police. Crime rate is very high. They're basically marginalized. So these are the second type of Palestinians. So first in Gaza, West Bank, the Israeli Arabs, and the last one are those in exile, those who ran out of Palestine in 1948 to Lebanon, to Syria, to other Arab countries and Western countries. But by far, the ones that have worse conditions are those in Lebanon.
There are about 7 million outside, we understand it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Dr. Nasser, Gaza Strip is described by many as the largest open-air prison. I heard somebody else this week saying that's wrong, because in a prison means somebody has done something wrong to be in a prison. And they say the better description is really a concentration camp. What are your comments?
That is actually, I'm not sure if it's me who actually initiated this discussion. People continue to refer to it as an open-air prison, and I very much disagree with this description. It's actually a concentration camp. And the reason is because people go to prison or to jail for doing something wrong, that they have committed, a crime. They have done something wrong to deserve to go to jail or to prison. That's not the case for the Palestinians. This is simply people who were forced to become refugees in their own homes, and treated and put in very dire conditions with lack of any basic rights or infrastructure to sustain a normal, dignified human life. And every now and then, bombs falling from the sky, killing their children and their wives and their husbands, and wiping out families. It is a concentration camp. It is not an open-air prison. It is a concentration camp.
So in 1948, you made reference to the Nakba of 1948, and the people in Gaza, most of them are ancestors or descendants, I should say, from the people of the Nakba.
Correct.
One Israeli minister said recently that the Nakba has not ended. What are your comments on that statement, that the Nakba has not ended? Seeing what is happening now, what is happening in the West Bank, do you agree with that?
Yes, given the situation on the ground right now and the circumstances that we're facing, it is. Just for your audience, the word Nakba referred to the 1948 massacre of the Palestinian villages and towns that forced the Palestinians to leave their homes into Gaza and the West Bank, and some, as we said, ran into neighboring countries. So the Nakba means in Arabic, it's an Arabic word. Nakba means catastrophe. It's the catastrophe that the Palestinians have faced in 1948 when the Zionist terrorist organizations by the name Haganah and Ergon committed massacres in those villages, and people were basically terrified and ran away from their homes into Gaza, West Bank, and went to exile. Now we thought it ended there. So now we're in Gaza and the West Bank, but now Israel is talking about kicking the Palestinians out of Gaza into Sinai, into the desert of in Egypt, east of Egypt, called Sinai. So that's basically phase 2, or actually phase 3 Nakba, because Nakba happened in 1948. Then the Naksa, we call it Naksa, means it's a kind of a defeat. Israel claims to have defeated 5 Arab armies in 6 days. They call it the 6-Day War in 1967. And then now 2023, that's phase 3. Call it Nakba, call it Naksa, catastrophe, whatever. So it's like a multi-phase process that has not ended. There's one thing I would like to mention that I'm sure many of your audience, maybe you will hear it for the first time. We always refer to the Israeli army as IDF. You've heard this term, correct?
No.
IDF. It stands for Israeli Defense Forces, correct? But if you translate it to Hebrew, it's actually Tzava Haganah Li-Israel. So listen to the middle word, Tzava Haganah Li-Israel. The middle word is Haganah, which means defense, which is actually the name of one of the largest Zionist terrorist organizations in 1948 that has committed massacres and crimes against the Palestinian villages. So the Israeli army was actually named after a terrorist organization. That is a fact that many people don't notice because of the translation. It means defense. But there were 2 major terrorist organizations in 1948 that have committed so many crimes against humanity, so many massacres like Deir Yassin in West Jerusalem. One of the organizations is called Haganah, which is defense, and the other one is called Ergon. So the Israeli
both of them were resistance groups against British occupation or British control. So I guess if they were around today, they may have been also called terrorist groups, but basically they were resistance groups to the British control of Palestine at that time.
Correct. And the Brits actually refer to them as terrorist organizations because they have killed many, British soldiers back in the day, including the bombing of the hotel in Jerusalem. And one of in fact, the leaders of those organizations like Ishaq al-Shamir, Menachem Begin, those later became Israeli prime ministers. They were actually wanted by the British government as terrorists. So kind of it's good to understand history, then you can start putting things in perspective.
Yeah. Doc, I want to ask you one question about, well, I want to get your thoughts on something. We, not in Gaza, we are seeing people's children got killed, and he's being interviewed and he's saying, Alhamdulillah, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. We're seeing a doctor leaving his patients, going to attend another patient, and his members of his family, they're dead, and he's saying, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. We're seeing people's houses are destroyed, and people are asking them, what do you have to say? They're saying, Alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah. So to us, we hear those stories about Sahaba. We hear those stories about people who would be thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala late in the night. We are seeing some of those stories in modern day Gazans and Palestinians. And just before you comment, we feel that, not really, the Palestinians and the Gazans are saying that we know we can't depend on anybody else. No, we can't depend on any Western leaders, even some of the Arab leaders. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. What can you tell us about the resilience of the people of Palestine? And what can you tell us about the Islamic background, Islamic training, and the resilience and the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
SubhanAllah, this is amazing, and it really makes me proud as a Palestinian to see the resilience of the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose these people for a reason. It chose them to defend al-Masjid al-Aqsa, to defend the dignity of the Arab and the Muslim world for a reason. They are the head of the spear. And in addition to that, Gaza has become the glue that brings, people and Muslims and people in general of conscience around the world together that support this just cause. The people of Gaza, they love life, I would say, more than anyone else. And how do I say that? We love life because we never lived it, because we've never experienced the true life. As I told you, imagine someone has never eaten a certain type of meal, for example, and they look forward to eat it. They would think, when you talk to them, they would think this is the most delicious meal ever, right? They would love to try it. The Palestinians have never tried life. That's why they love life maybe more than anyone else, because they've never tasted the true meaning of life. Okay. So we were not meant to die. We were not created to fight. We were not created to suffer. We were not created to be under occupation. We found ourselves I was born under Israeli occupation. I didn't know anything better. I didn't know any better life. I have so many friends. Alhamdulillah, I was blessed. I don't want to say lucky. I was blessed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the opportunity to go and get my higher educations and become successful in my career and have a family. And here I live in Texas in peace. But I have so many friends in Gaza who probably even more qualified than myself, have not gotten that opportunity and have never lived the life that they deserve, that many of them have lost their children or lost their wives. So we found ourselves in this situation. But the thing about Palestinians is they have this ability to adapt, the ability to basically live with the circumstances that they are in and make the most out of it. And subhanallah, with hardship comes you train to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially when you feel helpless sometimes. We do feel helpless, but not hopeless. Our hope is always in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a shame, Brother Mirza, that the Arab world produces more than 30 million barrels of oil per day, and Gaza sleeps in the dark. Right? It's shameful. And that is because we're dealing with corrupt regimes that don't really care about their people. It is sad that we are surrounded by very rich countries, yet none of them is able to bring a bottle of water to the people of Gaza. People in Gaza are drinking brackish water because all the desalination or salination plants have been either bombed or there's no fuel to run them. So people are drinking literally salt water and contaminated water. One of my close friends here in Philadelphia, his mother actually passed away from drinking a contaminated water. So, so people have realized that they have nobody but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no one to rely on except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And that comes over the years. They have developed this that we can't rely on anyone. Everyone has failed us. I mean, look at Gaza. More than 20,000 people have been killed. 40,000 people have been injured. And on top of that, the US is sending aircraft carriers to the Mediterranean. The Israelis are bombing hospitals and UN schools and residential buildings. And the United Kingdom is going to send drones to fly over Gaza. SubhanAllah. It's like Gaza is the next superpower in the world. It's like it is surprising. And so the only way people can rely on in Gaza is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have no choice. And so in Gaza, you have so many people who actually memorize the Quran. In fact, we have this competition every year where they graduate thousands of them as Huffaz from Gaza. Alhamdulillah. You have this this kind of raw belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they know this is part of the struggle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. That do not grieve, do not feel sad or depressed, because you will be made victorious if you're truly believing and trusting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, أَمْ حَسِبَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Right? So do you think that you will be claimed to be a believer without your being tested? You will be tested like those who came before you. I was talking to my brother, who's older than me by almost 2 years. He ran away with his family to the Shifa hospital, and he was taking shelter at the Shifa hospital. And at some point, this is just a couple of days before the Israelis storming the hospital, and people had to flee to the south. He said, SubhanAllah, it's as if the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking place and being applied on us as we speak. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. He said, all of them happened to us right now. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ. He said, we have never been more fearful for our lives the way we feel now. The drones are overhead. They're bombing around us. The tanks are just outside the hospital, and everyone is afraid for their life. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. He said, Wallahi, for the past 3 weeks, we have been eating beans. There's no way for us to leave the hospital and get any kind of food. We rely on canned food that we are fed up of, and we cannot. People are facing poor nutrition in Gaza right now, right? Al-Ju' wal-Khawf wa naqsan min al-amwali wal-anfusi wath-thamarat. He said, people are dying, people are losing their businesses, they have no money to buy anything, and there's no fruit, no veggies in the market. You go to the market, it's empty. He says, it's subhanAllah, it's like it applies perfectly to the people of Gaza today. I was talking to my brother this morning, actually. I managed to get hold of him in Rafah, in the south of Gaza. And I asked him, what do you guys eat? I know, Gaza is blocked from every direction in addition to the bombing. He said, Wallahi, we're barely making the ends meet. He said, we eat canned food, mainly pieces or beans. He said, we don't have any veggies, any fruit. We don't have meat, no rice, nothing. The only thing we eat is the Egyptian called fool in Arabic, which is beans, right? And he said, you could see it on our children. Actually, they're losing weight because of malnutrition or poor nutrition at this point. He said, even if you have food, you can't cook it because we don't have propane and we don't have gas. We don't have coal or wood. He said everything has been consumed. People started to cut the trees around the schools and the houses that they have to try to make food. He said, if you light a fire and there's a smoke, there is a risk that you could be bombed by the Israelis, by the tanks or the drones. So he said, any way you look at it, we're just trapped. Like literally, you are, it's a concentration camp. People are being trapped and being literally hunted and killed like trophies. And the thing that hurts the most is the fact that those countries, like the United States of America, like Israel, like Britain, like the Western world, that claims to be, appreciative and respectful of the human rights, the human life, the dignity of the human life, we don't believe that. As Palestinians, as an American right now, a proud American, I've never been more embarrassed in my life to call myself American like how I feel now. Because this is the last thing you would expect from a country like the US that advocates for liberty and justice for all, sing the songs of human rights, and you see the violations, all what it takes. You don't need a PhD in political science to realize these are war crimes and happening in Gaza. You look, just turn on your TV and you see children cut into pieces. People are being treated on the floors of the hospitals. Just an hour ago, Israel bombed Kamal Adwan Hospital that actually I helped a year ago to renovate, subhanAllah. We renovated this hospital. We spent close to $300,000 on that hospital. That hospital was bombed about an hour ago, and they say tens of people have been martyred and injured. And the numbers are going up. So in this situation, where do you go? You just say, Ya Allah, right?
No.
Oh, Allah help us. That's where the resilience of the Palestinians is coming from. And subhanAllah, Gaza has become the glue that brought the world and the people of conscience together. Alhamdulillah.
Hearing the dua, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, we were telling our people it's the dua that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam used in the catapult. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the Sahaba in the Battle of Khandaq. This is what they would say. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them victory. And you made a very important point. We are helpless, but we are not hopeless.
Correct.
Because the hope is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's right.
For anybody just joining, we are speaking to Dr. Mosab Nasser, originally from Gaza, lives in the United States now. We are discussing Gaza and we are discussing the situation. And I want to get to something a little bit more specific in terms of Dr. Nasser is involved with a group. He's the CEO of a group that in fact has been helping with medical supplies and surgeries in Gaza. And I want to get to that. I want to ask you one last question before I go to that. You mentioned just now about, our humanity, and have we lost our humanity, Doc? Have we lost it? And, subhanAllah, when it is people see the image that went viral over the last few days with Khalid, the grandfather, and his granddaughter, Reem, kissing the doll, kissing the dead child, the soul of my soul. Seeing that, how can people not be moved? Have we lost our humanity as a people? What do you think?
I don't think we have lost humanity. I think, like in every country around the world, there are people who have agendas that sometimes happen to have the loudest voice. I can tell you, I've been living in the US for the past 17 years. Regardless what people say about Americans, okay, the negative things, I have never seen and lived with more wonderful people like the people of America. They're really kind. They're very generous. They really want to help, but they are made to be unaware. They are made to believe false, basically, or inaccurate information. The U.S. media, as a Palestinian, if I would watch Fox News, and this is a joke, if I would watch Fox News for a month, I would start hating the Palestinians, and I'm a Palestinian, okay? And the reason, because information is filtered and presented in a way that they can turn people against you, even though you are the victim. You are the one who should be supported. And I give you an example. When we went to Gaza with our medical team last August, we had several Americans with us. those Americans fell in love with Gaza. They fell in love with the people of Gaza. They've never been to Gaza. They've never met Palestinians. But when we came back here to the US, they became advocates on the behalf of the Palestinians. We also the interview with Anderson Cooper with that nurse from Doctors Without Borders, right?
Yes.
When she described how the Palestinians treated her, and he asked her, would you go back? She said, in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah.
Why would she do that? Because she met the Palestinians. Many Americans haven't met the Palestinians. You know, when someone, you know, if you've never been to Palestine, if you've never been to Gaza, and someone tells you those people, you know, they behead children, as one of the Israeli soldiers lied on one of the American news channels. He said, you know, they hung Israeli babies on the wires of where they hang clothes at those settlements, and they raped women, and which we know all the lies. And none of these not a single evidence, right, was presented. Yet you see thousands of children, Palestinian children, being massacred and cut in pieces, and yet the first image, the first impression that people have, and the media has implanted in the minds of many people in America, that those Palestinians are very violent, they kill babies, they rape women, they burn houses, right? And Americans are very busy, so many of them don't have the time to go and research the truth. So they planted that seed and they wandered on their own, and that seed remained there. So when they see those images coming from Gaza, the first thing that comes to mind is like, they deserve it. Those guys are, you know, behead babies and rape women, and they are human shields for Hamas. And that's how the US media works. But going back to the story of Brother Khalid and his granddaughter Reem, there is a profound conclusion actually out of this story. SubhanAllah, you know, Hollywood and the US mainstream media have invested maybe billions of dollars in demonizing an image of someone like Brother Khalid with a turban and a beard, and he looks like a terrorist, right? And SubhanAllah, this is how the US media works. He looks like this is a terrorist. You should not sympathize with him. But his actions with his granddaughter over 20 seconds, taken with a phone, not even a professional camera, has captured the hearts of billions around the world, right? In 20 seconds, within the video taken with a phone, has literally destroyed the work of maybe years of false propaganda against Muslims and against Palestinians in Hollywood, in the movies, and the Fox News and the mainstream media. That short 20-second video with his daughter showed how much humane these people are, irrespective of how they look and how they dress. They have gentle and soft hearts. The gentle touch Brother Khalid had on the face of his granddaughter tells you this is a person that has a soft heart that captured the hearts of billions around the world. So look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. They plot and they can do whatever they want, but Allah is the best of plotters. And you can see the example of Brother Khalid is a good one. The army that claims to have defeated 5 Arab armies in 6 days have been chasing their tails in the north of Gaza for the past 6 weeks, and they haven't been able to conquer less than 100 square kilometers. It's not the Palestinians, my dear brother Mirza, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. And that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what will expose those criminals, those murderers, those state terrorists that, you know, they look like professional in suits, but they are way more deadly than what you call group terrorism. And leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you will see wonders. That's how we think as Palestinians.
And that is amazing, subhanAllah, amazing. They plan and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who plans. For those who want to put questions, topic related, please use the chat to do so for now. Hopefully, if we get time at the end, we'll open the lines. But for now, you please put your question in the chat. I see one already, then inshallah we'll answer it in a little bit. But before time runs out, Sheikh, Mosab, you are the CEO of Al-Fajr Scientific. For the sake of our audience, I want you to tell us about your organization. What have you been doing in Gaza? and at the end, make sure you say, how can we help? Because we want to tell people that this is one way to donate and to support the group. So tell us about your organization and what you have been doing in Gaza.
Inshallah, Habib. And inshallah, I will show you a video, if you don't mind, about the work that we have been doing.
Okay.
So Fajr Scientific is a medical organization, and we wanted to do something that really no one has ever done before. There's a lot of organizations around the world that do medical missions, correct? But we wanted to do something different and unique. Many of the organizations in the US, most of them, I would say, they have missed on the critical asset that the Muslim community in America has, which is our knowledge, our expertise. In fact, you find in America the best of the best doctors, the best of the best engineers from all around the world, right here in America. But what you find, many Muslim organizations, they use doctors and engineers and other businessmen as cash cows, as I say. They just write the check and they use the money to buy food and blanket and tents and supplies and send them to disaster areas. But if you look at Gaza doesn't really need blankets. Of course it does, but it doesn't need all these organizations to do the same thing.
Right.
It needs people with expertise to treat these serious injuries, right? Whether it's orthopedic or trauma or whatever it is, right? So the Muslim community has not sent a medical team, let's say, to the Turkey earthquake. No medical teams. We only send supplies, food and drinks and coal and heating stuff. So we put together Fajr Scientific that picks the best of the best surgeons and medical professionals in the country. Most of our team are Ivy League trained, meaning they're from Harvard, from Columbia, from Yale, or top universities like Stanford, Berkeley, and so on. Okay, and we handpick them. Some of them have 20 plus years of experience, and we send large-scale medical missions, for example, to Palestine. And last time we were there, we brought in a team, about 30 plus people, 32. We did 153 complex orthopedic surgeries in 5 days. We've trained more than 70 medical personnel on the ground. We had 90 medical students working with us in Gaza. We publish papers, we bring in supplies. In fact, we brought in about $4 million worth of supplies to Gaza. And before the war, we were planning to go back and with a team of maybe 70 medical personnel from the US, top surgeons and top physical therapists, anesthesiologists, OR nurses, to operate at 6 hospitals in Palestine. And we are promising 300 surgeries. This is supposed to happen in August, and inshallah it will, but then the war happened. So now for the war, for Gaza, we are actually preparing to send multiple medical teams as soon as we have a ceasefire to go and work on those injuries. We have about 40,000 injuries, and we're putting a plan to treat the first 5,000 maybe within the first month or two. And each surgery would cost us, inclusive with logistics and everything, is about $3,500. In addition to that, and you're talking, this is a multi-million-dollar operation that we are trying to rally the organizations in the US, even countries in the Middle East to help with that. We're also sending medical supplies. In fact, we're sending our first shipment either this week or next week to Egypt, and then from there to Gaza. And we have promised to send up to 10 containers, 10 to 13 containers, approximately 360 tons of medical supplies to Gaza as soon as we have a ceasefire. The logistics is a bit tricky because of the parties involved, but this is the aim. We want to rebuild the health infrastructure in Gaza by sending medical supplies and tools and everything else. And we want to send the best trained surgeons from the US and around the world to go to Gaza and treat those people, whether they are 20,000 or 40,000. We will not turn our back on them. And we're building alliances basically with organizations that can help us financially or help us with supplies, whatever we can do to help the people of Gaza. That's kind of in a nutshell.
No. So you took in some doctors, you did 150 something surgeries already. you want to take medical supplies in, you have a team standing by to move in as soon as the ceasefire will allow you to go.
Correct.
We can't say when.
Correct.
What can we do in this part of the world? What can we do if we want to contribute, if we want to help? How can we? But I agree with you. I agree with you 100% that many of the organizations sometimes duplicate efforts and we buy the same thing and so on. And this is a unique opportunity to help people whose limbs have been blown off, who have been shot, people to give them life-saving surgeries that they normally couldn't get. Subhanallah. So we in the Caribbean, I want you to tell us how can we help in terms of contributing to your efforts.
We would love to have you become our permanent donors. Help us keep raising the money that we need, because we're not talking about 10,000 or 100,000 or even 1 million. These surgeries are very expensive. Buying the implants, the supplies that we use to fix the broken bones. If you have a broken femur or a broken arm or a fractured elbow. In fact, many of the injuries, for example, in the West Bank, where they shoot the Israeli soldiers shoot the hip area and fracture that part of the body or the knee. That requires a very complex surgery that can cost a lot of money. Sponsoring one surgery is a major thing, or even half a surgery. It doesn't matter. Or multiple people can sponsor one surgery. So we have 40,000 cases now in Gaza that needs to be treated. This is beyond Fajr. This is beyond one organization. So this is anything we can do to help them. That would be great. That's number one. Number two, anyone has any kind of expertise, not just medical, and would like to volunteer with us, whether it's on the logistics side, whether it's on the software development side, whether it's on the data analysis side. So this is what's unique about Fajr Scientific that most likely you will not find with any organization on the planet. Irrespective of your expertise, and if you have the time and you would like to help, and we think that you would be helpful, we will accommodate you. It does not matter what your expertise are. Of course, our core service is surgical and more related to medical. But I can tell you, if you're a data person or a software development person, I just received the list of patients from Gaza that has more than 1,200 patients, names, type of injury, date of birth, and so on and so forth. It's all in Arabic. We have volunteers who have degrees in software development that they're translating this into English and creating like using AI, a search engine and a filtration engine to say, give me all the cases that have a broken femur or a broken skull or have an injury in the spine. So categorizing and sorting out the different patients will allow us to decide what kind of implants we need to buy, what kind of supplies we need to buy, so kind of customize it. So it's not about what I call feel-good medical missions, where we just go there, tell our donors, we are here, donate for us. No, we actually do it in a very structured, very organized, very educated way, because our team, as I said, is from the top universities, and those guys think in a very highly advanced way. It's not just about emotions and let's just go and help. That's not how.
So the data is important to be able to determine priorities and determine importance and determine where resources should in fact go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Allah bless you for that wisdom. So one of the sisters, in fact, is saying in the chat, is there any organization someone can join if they want to volunteer their services? Well, I think this sister is in fact a medical doctor, so I guess we can put her on to you and she can discuss with you the possibility of volunteering her services and
absolutely. If you just if you like, I can post. Let me put here in the text the email address where you can maybe send your resume and tell us what you'd like to do. And if you are qualified, and I can tell you, and with all due respect to everybody, we don't take anyone. We take the best of the best, because the last thing we want is to take people to go and train on the people of Gaza. As we say, they have enough, right? So we take the best doctors who are willing, who have the expertise, know what they're doing, and they're willing to invest their time and energy. And they are more than welcome to join us. Absolutely.
So somebody's asking in the chat, while you find that, given that the hospitals not in operation or have not been in operation, no electricity and so on, what are the surgeries where are these surgeries going to be done? If you all go, what will happen? How do you plan to operate?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, Brother Mirza. So right now we have two hospitals in Gaza that are kind of semi-functional. It's Nasser Hospital and European Hospital. And they have, at Nasser Hospital, we have 6 ORs, operating rooms or operating theaters. And at the European Hospital, I believe we have 4. The Shifa is completely out of service because of the bombing and the destruction that it has faced. And we are collaborating with other organizations to actually establish field hospitals. But usually field hospitals can only have an ICU. They don't have ORs unless you have a mobile OR in a container, which I had a discussion this morning with another organization that's going to provide that. If we have a ceasefire, then we can try to make use of those hospitals that are still functional. And another scenario which is also I am working on actually with countries in the region with the ministries of health, is to try to bring those patients out of Gaza into, for example, Turkey or Kuwait, where we can actually send our medical teams there. The logistics is very, very complicated. This is by far the most logistically complex part of the world. It's way beyond Ukraine. It's way beyond, the heartlands of Africa or South America. It's not because of the terrain. It's because of the restrictions from governments and entry points. And like if you try to send an X-ray machine to Gaza, most likely it will not go in because they'll tell you this is a dual use, the Israelis.
Okay.
If you try to send, for example, one of my friends was trying to send tents to Gaza, a tent. There's nothing, rocket science. But then they said, well, those tents have metal poles, right? Where you had to make them stand. And they said that could be a dual use. It's not allowed in. Okay. So those are the kind of restrictions, but for the kind of things we do, the kind of surgeries we do, so far, and the kind of supplies we send, we get permissions for them and we bring them into the hospitals in Gaza.
Yeah.
So if you want to help, let's say in sending supplies, I sent you, Brother Mirza, the flyer you can share with the group. If you want to sponsor surgeries, you are more than welcome. If you want to come with us, if you're someone with expertise that would be valuable, especially trauma, you're welcome to join us. If you'd like to do all of the above, you're also welcome to do so.
We'll be sharing this flyer that Dr. Nasser sent. It gives a QR code and we can scan it for those of you, and we can inshallah donate as best as we can for the supplies and for the children and the women who in fact have lost limbs. They need prosthetics, they need surgeries. I'm sure there's going to be some miraculous things going to happen. And as a loaded question, is a good, where will we do the surgeries? Do we have any anesthetic, etc.? Inshallah, you will have to deal with that. But we will share this on our platforms locally, and we are supporting and we are suggesting to people and encouraging people to please donate to this cause, because we feel it's really genuine. It is in fact something that is needed. In fact, it is something that I believe probably more needed in some other areas. They will get blankets, plenty blankets from UN, and plenty water and plenty this, but not many medical teams will in fact move in. And Dr. Nasser, I've heard another professional is saying that not only for surgeries, children died, but the children who remain alive, the trauma they have to go through, the psychotherapy, the psychological counseling is in fact going to be humongous and tremendous. And this is not surgery, this is mental stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you would like me to show the video of the last mission that we did in Gaza as a short break for everyone, I think this would be that would be good to show.
Yeah, now is a good time for that. Inshallah, we close off in a little bit after that.
Inshallah. And tell me if you hear the sound before I start the video, inshallah. So let me hear. Okay, so the sound should be on. Can you hear the sound?
Yes, now, hear it, yes.
Okay, perfect.
يعني انت لو ما عملتش العمليه اليوم انت كان المفروض تستنى كمان سنه و3 شهور عشان تعمل العمليه.
سلامتك، الف سلام عليكم.
ندعو الله سبحانه وتعالى انه يوفقنا نعمل اكبر قدر ممكن من العمليات حتى نساعد الناس اللي زيكم.
هذه الفرصة الوفد هذا وفرت علي تقريبا نص سنة.
So he had the accident almost 3 years ago, and he was promised, last year to do a surgery. So the wait time is about 11 months.
أنا والله رجولي بتوجعني، لها يمكن 5 سنين 6 سنين والله ما بقدر يعني أشتغل، ما بقدر أعمل شيء في المطبخ.
والحمد لله يعني ربنا أخيرا وفقنا، جينا على مستشفى ناصر وسمعنا في وفد جاي من برا، والله يوفقهم ويسعدهم وبارك الله فيهم.
To accomplish this goal, we are focused on doing 2 things. We primarily do surgery to come and provide care for those patients that have been on waiting lists for a long time, and to the fact that the numbers have grown over in Gaza. And as a result of that, also we want to train the local capability and expertise with the ministry, with the physicians here who are orthopedic surgeons. This way, this expertise will continue on after we leave. We do this through our collaboration with the physicians as well as the Ministry of Health and actually the students who will be the next generation of orthopedic surgeons here in Gaza and the medical schools.
وكما ترون احنا حضرنا معنا هذه الانواع من المفاصل اللي هي ما شاء الله يعني من افضل نوعيه من المفاصل لاهلنا في غزه، انهم يستحقوا كل خير.
We came on this mission specifically to educate the local surgeons on the advanced techniques of joint replacement surgery. This particular mission is concentrating on complex knee replacements.
Our goal is, we have a lofty goal of transmitting 50 years of knowledge within 5 years.
On the first day, we did 25 surgeries. On the second day, we did 32 surgeries at the 3 hospitals. And today we're hoping to do a similar number.
الله يعطيهم الصحة، وإن شاء الله المزيد منهم يجوا علينا كمان أكثر وأكثر وأكثر.
شكرا لمؤسسة فجر والقائمين عليها، شكرا لسفراء الإنسانية، شكرا اللي حسوا بالشعب الغلبان والناس الفقراء.
ونشكر كثير الوفد الأمريكي على جهوده، وإن شاء الله دائما هو سباق للأعمال الخيرية.
That's it. Thank you very much for watching.
A really quick comment is that the hospitals look very nice. It may not look that way when you go back.
That is correct. So the images you saw were actually from the Shifa Hospital, from Nasser, and from the European Hospital, the three major hospitals in Gaza where we operated. We conducted different types of surgeries. We did sports medicine at the Shifa. We did total knee replacements at the Nasser Hospital, and the foot and ankle at the European. And those surgeries cost, in the US, like $30,000. We brought in everything with us, and we did it at zero cost for the people of Gaza. Alhamdulillah.
My brother, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and your entire team for what you have done. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring more success to your team. I want to say publicly that we, the Islamic Dawah Movement, Harakatul Dawah al-Islamiyya, we endorse the work of Dr. Nasser and his team of Fajr Scientific, and we would encourage people to donate to this team. Inshallah, we'll be putting the flyer on our platforms, and we'll be doing some encouragement as we go along to contribute to this team, either physically, if it is you can, you're a medical person, or medically, financially, to contribute so that the team can continue doing this stuff as soon as they are allowed to go into Gaza. Alhamdulillah. Sister Nadia, we're seeing your comment as well. So, okay, I want you to have some final words. What can you tell us again in terms of, in addition to supporting you, what can we do for the people of Gaza? If we are not doctors, we don't have all the money to support you. Tell us the final words. What can we do to help the people of Palestine?
Just make dua for them. Make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect them and be with them and make them victorious in this vicious war that is unjust, unfair, that's targeting mainly the civilian population. UN schools, hospitals, homes, shopping centers, those are not military targets. And what's happening is designed to destroy the Palestinian spirit and keep the Palestinians in Gaza basically busy with themselves effectively for years to come in the rebuilding process, and wipe out that small victory on October 7 that some people in Gaza have. Wipe it out completely from their minds, that one day, if you dare to do that, this is going to be the consequences. What's happening in Gaza is wrong on every level. You don't need to be a PhD in political science or in law to know that these are war crimes, killing innocent people. And killing innocent people, destroying hospitals, schools, destroying the infrastructure does not bring victory, as we have seen in the past 7 weeks. It only brings shame to those who are sponsoring it, to those who are endorsing it, and to those who are executing it in Gaza. And it is heartbreaking knowing your families right now under the US bombs, effectively, for a crime that they have not committed. Keep them in your dua. Those are wonderful people. I can tell you that the Fajr team that you saw now in the video, we went to Gaza as a team and we came back as a family. They fell in love with the people of Gaza. The people of Gaza are wonderful. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly loves them because He chose them to be among the first, inshallah, to go to Jannah during this year. And you can imagine there is this beautiful bridge between Gaza and the gates of paradise. 20,000 people, inshallah, have made it to paradise in the past 6 weeks. We should not feel sorry for them. Actually, we should envy them because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them for this amazing, amazing task to defend Palestine and Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa on our behalf. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them because they are special and they should be special to all of us, that we should not turn our back on them, irrespective of what America, what Israel, what England, what the rest of the world thinks about them. Those are resilient, amazing, amazing people. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them victory. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them sabr and patience and keep them resilient in these difficult times. And Jazakumullah khair for the amazing effort that you guys are doing. You're thousands of miles away from Gaza, but obviously your hearts are in Gaza with the people of Gaza. And this means a lot to us as Palestinians and the people of Gaza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and accept it from you. Allahumma ameen.
My dear brother, beloved brother, Barakallahu Fikum, Jazakumullahu Khairan. We really appreciate you taking the time out to spend with us. For the sake of the audience, we intended to actually bring our brother to Trinidad and Tobago. He would have done a Jumu'ah khutbah. He would have had a couple of lectures, TV programming, etc. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So this is not the last we'll be in contact with our brother. Inshallah, we'll stay in touch and we'll see how possible it is in the not too distant future to be able to come to our lovely country. Again, somebody saying to treat you with coconut water. We're even thinking about even some fundraising to help the particular effort. Inshallah, we'll see where it goes from here. We want to thank all of you for attending. Inshallah, the video will still be up on our platforms for a little while. So my beloved brother, Barakallahu Fikum, inshallah, we'll stay in touch. Jazakumullahu khairan, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. Jazakumullah kul khair. And by the way, I know the one who said, treat me with the coconut water. I'm going to, for the sister, before you go, Habib, for the sister who wanted to volunteer, inshallah, with us, I'm going to put the link to Federal Scientific here.
Okay.
Before you go, if you can click on that link, and I will make it also easy for you, inshallah, if you would like to donate and the QR code does not work with you. This is another link that I recommend that you click on it. Jazakumullah kul khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from you. Ameen.
Brother Amir, can you take note of these two links, please, that Dr. Nasser put there so we can put it in our platforms as well? Thank you very much. In addition to Janaim. So take care, everybody. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Doc, we'll stay in contact, inshallah.
Inshallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.